forward, and we go right into Lord Jagannath pastimes. I want to start first with some of the earlier, or the present-day pastimes, which happened with Rath Yatra in San Francisco. This was the beginning of the whole extravaganza that took the world by storm. Like Lord Jagannath coming to America was a major deal. And it was all by somewhat kind of a arranged accident that Malati found. She stole these little Jagannath deities from this emporium store. And when she presented it to Prabhupada, it was just a token appreciation. She didn't know what it was. It was just a little Jagannath deity. And so Prabhupada looked at it and immediately paid his obeisances and just, "You've brought Lord Jagannath. You brought Jagannath." And so he was like completely, in this ecstasy that Jagannath had come to him. He says, "There's two more. Can you go back there and get the other two? There are two more little dolls like that." And so, of course, she went back and got the other two. Maybe she bought those. In any case, Shama Sundar was encouraged to start carving the first Jagannath deities. And so that took place. And as he's carving it, he's smoking his cigarettes, and he's got the pack of cigarettes on top of Lord Jagannath. And so Prabhupada saw this and said, no, this is the Lord. Don't do that. That's not nice. And so he did that. He carved the first deities, and they became very famous. And ultimately, the first Rath Yatra happened on that flatbed truck provided by a hippie group. And so from that first Rath Yatra, it expanded across the world. And so now Rath Yatra is known everywhere by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And that was his beginning from the time he was a child, that his interest in Lord Jagannath and Puri was from the very beginning, when he first had a chance to make cart and do the whole thing. It involved the whole neighborhood to worship Lord Jagannath, had the ladies cook prasadam, kachoris. You have to have kachoris. And so Kachori Mukha started the first kirtan in the beginning of Rath Yatra started. So then we proceed back to Jagannath Puri. When I entered the temple in 75, there were two white tornadoes. One was Jayananda, and he was just like going in every direction, and if you know what a white tornado is, it spins really fast and it cleans up everything. And so he was spinning as fast as he could and telling everybody to do different things. Told us to sit down, take prasad immediately. Then the first job was cutting up sabjis or salad so that we could be part of the service line. And so Lord Jagannath began to affect everybody just by the fact that this festival was about to happen. And so I always dreamed that to be a time when we could feed hundreds and thousands of people. It'd be a wonderful way to satisfy the hunger of the masses. And so Prabhupada was, clued into this, and by feeding everybody. The Christian church doesn't do it. All you get is a little wafer. Nobody does it. Nobody but the devotees have started this worldwide mass production of prasadam. And so that changed the heart. I think if I had hands raised, how many joined because of prasadam? A good number. Not everybody. I was one of them. When I tasted that prasadam, we were coming from the jungles of Costa Rica and flew into Miami where we joined the temple. And so the first taste of that Mahaprasad would just send me right through the sky. It was so good. Big giant mangoes they had, and there was mangoes in every preparation. There was nothing like that on the face of the earth. It was truly spiritual. And so the devotees were chanting and dancing in this little room. That was a temple, and it was spinning. The room was shaking. The whole house was shaking. And then they're spinning around this plant. I thought, what a nice group of people, because they worship a plant. I had no idea who Tulsi Devi is. And so then it started. The first Ratri that I saw was in 75. And Jagannath is coming down, very graciously and very magnanimously. The Jagannath cart is just so powerful, with Jagannath commandeering the whole space. Then all of a sudden he started dancing. He started going boom, 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 boom. And what had happened, the wheels flattened in between the spokes. So instead of a wheel, you had a hectagonal shaped wheel. And so whenever it turned, it would just boom, boom. And so it looked like Jagannath was walking. I said, wow. Now, whoever designed that, it must have been Jagannath. Well, he was there holding it up because it was shaking apart. That was Lord Jagannath's cart. It was just, by the time he got to Golden Gate Park, it just completely disintegrated. In any case, along the way, Prabhupada stopped the whole procession and stopped, and it was near a grove of trees. He got off the cart and walked inside the little grove where all the trees are. And nobody knew what he was doing. So he had to go to the bathroom. And so he stopped the whole parade, went to the bathroom, and got back on the cart and proceeded to Golden Gate Park. And so then Prabhupada throwing the flowers in the white, he had the white cardigan on and this big garland. He's throwing the flowers and everybody going wild. And so that prasadam distribution was just so ecstatic. And so along the way, of course, there were incidences, and Prabhupada was warned that the Black Panthers might disturb the whole operation. And they did. A bunch of these blacks, there was one incident that the blacks, one little black boy wanted to get on the cart, and the devotees wouldn't allow it. He called his father, and the father's a Black Panther. All of a sudden, a whole group of these big black guys attacked one of the black devotees. And so Keshava, Karandar's brother, was notified, said, come on, let's go, we can't let this happen. So he jumped into the pile and started throwing these Black Panthers away one by one and beating them all. And so finally got down to the devotee, but then he looked around. He thought he had a backup, but there was nobody but him. So here he was fighting off about 10 different Black Panthers. So everybody gets empowered by Lord Jagannath, and that kind of mercy permeates the present day. And so in Lord Chaitanya's time, the empowerment was, can you only imagine how intense that empowerment was with Lord Chaitanya dancing in front of the cart, whirling like a firebrand, and spinning so fast that he only could see a bunch of flames coming. And so he'd go behind the cart, and that was, we mentioned last time, that was important because he's playing with Lord Jagannath. Lord Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya are playing with each other. And so he'd go behind the cart, Lord Jagannath would stop. And so when he got behind the cart, he was telling Jagannath, remember us, remember all the gopis, and remember all of us inhabitants of Vrindavan, don't forget. And he'd go in front of the cart, and Jagannath would slowly start again. And so back and forth. And then there were the different parties that led and then the whole thing with Harish Chandra and Srivas happened with a slapping in the face. And but it just a remembrance that no matter what, we get kicked around, pushed by the people going after the ghee lamps, and it happens. You get kicked in the face different times. So in any case, the whole episode of coming to the Gundachi is very elaborately described, but going back, there's nothing. I've been trying to research it, and I can't find anything. There wasn't hardly anything mentioned, except the farewell addresses. And when Lord Chaitanya was saying farewell to everybody, he was giving them big embraces and prasad to take back. He gave a cloth for Mother Sachi and some prasadam to take back to his mother. The reminder that I've never left my mother. It was a crazy state when I took sannyas. I don't know what I was doing, but I can't leave that love for my mother. And so Sachi was like given that cloth and the prasadam, and then she'd be cooking for Lord Chaitanya. And Nimai's plate was always there and on her lap, and Lord Chaitanya would come and eat it right off the lap. And so she'd be, in trance, and then look down at the plate's gone. I mean, there's nothing left on the plate. And so he would do that often, just to show that there was some remembrance there, that he was present, he wasn't away. And so he kept that intensity going all the time. And so he embraced everybody and sent them off so that they would come back next year and stay again for 4 months. So different people stayed. Nityananda was told to preach, and everybody got different instructions to go and preach. And Srivas said, listen, you keep preaching and dancing, and I'll be there, and only you will see it. And so that happened all the time. And then Gadadhar Pandit had this Chetra sannyas, and so he was absolutely shocked that Lord Chaitanya was going to leave. He was going to Vrindavan, so he had to go with him. And so he gave, I don't care about this vow that I took. So he says, I'm following you wherever you go. And so Lord Chaitanya looked at him, and they went, he says, I'm not going to try to tell you to stop, but you're going to break the vow, and it's going to be a reflection on me. And so you better don't do it. He said, no, I'm following you wherever you go. But he got to the river that divided, the different steps to go back to Vrindavan. So he says, okay, you stay here, that's my order, you don't follow anymore. You've broken 2 vows already. One is your sense gratification to be with me, and the other is your Kshetra sannyas. Now you stay here. He got on a boat and left, and he just fell apart. He just collapsed unconsciously. And so all that time that they were together in the Gundaji, first what happened, Tota Gopinath was the Lord Master of Puri. And so when Lord Chaitanya and Gadadhar would exchange, it happened every day. Lord Chaitanya would go to the Tota Gopinath temple, they have an exchange. Gadadhar is preaching about pastimes of Vrindavan, and ultimately Lord Chaitanya absorbed all that and understanding the mood of Krishna and Radharani and that deep love. He's trying to understand it because he's talking to Radharani, Gadadhar. And so he's explaining about what what Radharani's feelings are. And so that happened every day. He'd go back to this Gambhira and just start bouncing off the walls. His marks are still on the walls and bleeding because he's bouncing and just the static symptoms that he had. And then there's so many wonderful little pastimes that happen before the festival. And like the fisherman story, I narrated that already. But anyway, this fisherman got the ghost image that, he's touched by this big, huge, massive flesh. And ultimately, it just turned him into a ghost. He got haunted. He's going crazy. And when Lord Chaitanya was dancing from the cart, he couldn't pronounce the word Jagannath. And he was like, falling on the floor. Lord Chaitanya is, Nityananda is behind him trying to catch him when he fell. And so he's like, chasing around, and Lord Chaitanya is going crazy. And so there's no way to describe the ecstatic mood that was going on. And the whole mood, of course, as we know, is Lord Chaitanya is taking Jagannath to the Gambhira, to Vrindavan. But what happens after that? What happens about going back? If you go today, there's hardly half the crowd. And half that crowd leaves because the big important part of it is going. But the return, there's nothing mentioned, hardly anything in CC. So what took place on the return? Well, we don't know. But some parts of it is the description of everybody leaving, going away, and then ultimately coming back next year. He made sure everybody came back. Now, if we go flashback 5,000 years, when Krishna is coming to Kurukshetra, he's bringing his whole entourage. Here comes all the soldiers, the cavalry, elephants, horses, chariots. The whole Yadu dynasty is coming, in preparation for this eclipse. And so they're all in their regalia. Now the gopis, when they saw this, Krishna in his full regalia, and it's like his extravaganza in a way of all the royalty and all the beautiful garments, and they brought all these cows, and they were all decorated with gold, and they were all given in charity. And so the gopis are just shocked. I mean, what is this? I mean, this is not our Krishna. And so they distributed the cows, and then they had a big feast. But first they fasted during the eclipse. Then they had the feast. They fed thousands. And so then all the sages start coming in. And so there's Gautam, there's Narada, there's Vasudeva, there's so many, the writer of the Bhagavatam. And so all these great sages, Asita, Devala, everybody you can imagine, they all came. So here's all these great sages, all these wonderful, astute scholars and renunciates. And then comes like, all the other side from the Pandavas came, Dhritarashtra, and all that whole side came. And that clan was there. And so you got this wide collection of all these people who a short time later are going to be in a battle, are going to kill everybody off. And so, but at that time, everybody is friendly, receiving each other. I mean, when Nanda and Yasoda met Devaki and they were just like, they can't even describe it. I mean, the intensity of the description is, just Vasudeva and Devaki and Rohini. They all went with Mother Yasoda and not into Vasudeva's tent. I mean, how big that tent was, I had no idea, but a lot of people pushed in there. And so when Nanda and Yasoda saw Krishna and Balaram, they just grabbed him. And as soon as they touched him, they just went into trance. And so they picked him up as much as they could and put him on their lap. Mother Yasoda put him on, I don't know if they both went on her lap, but and they described they went on her lap, and then they became like 8-year-old boys. And so that whole pastime took place. And so as soon as they saw that, there's Devaki and Rohini, and so they just saw the intense love that Mother Yasoda had for the boys, their children. But the love was so intense they had to leave the tent. So there's no way to describe the feeling that was going on between them. And then when there was a lull in the whole activities and the women were talking with each other, finally they all got together outside. And so under the trees, and they had took the feast, and they were reclining, and Krishna took the opportunity to sneak away to be with the gopis. Okay, now he begins this jnana yoga description to the gopis. And so all these gopis just didn't want to hear it. He's describing, you're not your body, and then ultimately he's talking about, I'm never leaving you because there's a supreme power that's working. That supreme dictation is making it happen like this. This is fate. And it says, I was away because I had to kill the demons and I had to protect my mother and father. And all that had to happen because of fate, because of some supreme power. And they go, listen now, you are the supreme power. And you're talking about this other power as it was somebody else, but you're the Supreme Lord, so it was you who did all this. You are the one that was responsible for all this. It was your understanding and your making that this happened. He says, okay, if I am the Supreme Lord, then ultimately I'm permeated in everything. I'm in your hearts. I can never leave you. And so I've never left Vrindavan. That's just your imagination. You think I've left. Ultimately, I'm always there. I'm always in your heart. I'm in everyone's heart. And so there's no escaping the glory and the opulence of Krishna because he's in our heart. There's no way to describe it beyond the fact that whatever we do, wherever we go, ultimately these Rath Yatra festivals will capture the heart of everybody. Because as soon as a person sees the cart with Lord Jagannath, he's immediately removed from the material world and he has no more birth on this planet. That's a benediction that Lord Jagannath gives. And so that happens all over the world. And that's why Prabhupada wanted that to happen. He wanted this Rath Yatra festival to be so ingrained in the whole human society that ultimately by seeing, there'll be many people, meat eaters, intoxicators, everything that goes on in the material world, the degradation, the whole degraded state the world is in, ultimately gets purified. And so then the Jagannath Prasadam. I mean, whenever we taste the Jagannath Prasadam, it's just outrageous. It's so amazing. It's not of this world. And we're immersed in this thing. We're all here. We're taking part of this wonderful festival. And now, unfortunately, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra are leaving. And it's a great lamentation because now we won't see them unless we go there for another year. But meanwhile, we've had the presence of them for 8 days, and ultimately, this is a time for renewal. And when the Mother Goddess of Fortune came to check on her husband, he said, I'm only going to be away for a couple of days. Don't worry, I'll be fine. You just stay here and don't worry because it's only going to be a few days. I'll be back. But he didn't come back for more than those couple of days. So she comes with her entourage and slaps the servants, and that whole episode takes place. So the reason Lord Chaitanya wanted to go to Gundachi is because the gardens represent Vrindavan. And Vrindavan is a place where there's no politics. There's nothing but pleasure. There's nothing but green, wonderful parrots and peacocks and cows and everything that's beautiful and pristine and simple is in Vrindavan. Not today so much. Today there's pollution. The cars are just inundated the whole city. You can't move on Sundays and Saturdays. The whole Sunday sadhus come from Delhi and they get they just go everywhere. They got to drive in their car to get everywhere, and just backed up from one end of the town to the other. And so all the natives, they pass stool on the Jamuna, and so you just can't hardly breathe. And the pollution going on, everything in Vrindavan is transforming. I've watched it the last 37 years, and when I first got there, it was beautiful. Sweet dirt roads, cows everywhere, no cars, no bicycles hardly, just people walking. And now it's just the opposite. And buildings going up everywhere. There's going to be this gigantic temple going up, and already there's a metro system that's planned to stop right smack in the middle, practically of the Mathura Mandal. Right at the entrance to Vrindavan, there'll be a metro station. And when that happens, oh my God, that'll be just like 1 hour's ride to Vrindavan, so they'll be inundated with all these people from Delhi. So, but there's a good side of it. If devotees want to take their shopping, they just get on the metro and go to Delhi, do their shopping, come back the same day. In any case, a couple more points I want to mention. There was one incident, a couple of these incidents that took place at Lord Chaitanya I wanted to enumerate. One was the stock that was built up because of all the people bringing, devotees from Bengal were bringing all their prasadam. And so they lined up, there was enough food stock for 100 men. And so when everybody was asking, does Lord Chaitanya eat the food I brought? They kept saying, well, I'm not sure. In any case, Lord Chaitanya said, well, I don't want you to be lying, so he told the devotee to bring all that prasadam. So the whole stock of 100 men came in front of him. It was like the 24-hour ecstasy that Lord Chaitanya just never stopped eating. He's Lord Jagannath. He'd been fed 56 times, 60 or 64, so many times in Puri. And so that whole appetite that Lord Chaitanya had just never ceased. He said, well, there's nothing left but the sacks and the plates. Should I bring that? He said, no, that's okay. He stopped. And so that was one thing. Whenever Lord Chaitanya danced during the whole festival, every time he took a step, the whole earth would shake. And so we don't realize the power and presence of the Supreme Lord. But when the dancing took place, everybody was affected by it. Well, then there's a famous little gathering between Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy. Everybody's sporting in the water in the lake nearby, Gundachi. And so they're behaving like little children because they got into the mood, because the mood was created by Lord Chaitanya of developing this friendly attitude, sporting, splasting each other with water and behaving like kids. And so Lord Chaitanya says, listen, you are grave scholars, you're intellectuals, and why are you doing this? Why are you acting like children? And so he was kind of belittled them. Then there's these things that happened before. That Vasudeva Datta, of course, we know. Well, before that happened, this thing with Murray Gupta. This is before the festival back in Bengal. That Murray Gupta was told by Lord Chaitanya, now you worship Krishna, and you do it now. And so it was a test to see what he would do. So that night, Murray Gupta was in pain. He just couldn't sleep. He was rolling in agony. There's just so much pain in his head because he couldn't do it. He was so attached to Ramachandra. So next morning he approached Lord Chaitanya. He said, I can't do it. No matter what I try, my Lord, I just can't do it. I'm so attached to your form as Lord Ramachandra. Yes, okay, so you're a Hanuman anyway, so what's the problem? So you go on worshiping. I was just testing to see if you're okay. Then Vasudeva Datta came on next and got a benediction. And so he said, I just want to say one thing. If it's possible, let me take on my head all the reactions of all the people in the material world. Now, Srila Prabhupada said that was much more powerful, 1,000,000 times more than what Lord Christ had done, because Lord Christ was accepting the sins of a few apostles at that time, and then later accepting for the whole Christianity. And so it's mentioned in the Korean Gospel, according to Prabhupada, that he was there. Christ was present during one of the Roth festivals. He must have danced and chanted in ecstasy. And so it's also recorded that in Benares, he was there also. And the pundits it's written down that the pundits were saying about this personality, that he's so advanced that there's no need for any more after this, because he's done everything. In other words, he was a great scholar in the Upanishads, and he really knew the Vedas. And so he had to take that back to Jerusalem, and he wondered, how can I preach to these people? So it all came out in parables. There's nothing he could really say about the whole experience in the 12 years that he was missing. So it's a big blank, absent from everybody's head. One thing that happened, when all these kings came, when Dhritarashtra and their clan and everybody came, and it was like it happened that everybody was friendly, and also they were like exchanging, and everybody from the kings from all the different provinces came, because already that sacrificial horse went around, and everybody was conquered on the planet already. That King Yudhisthira was pronounced the king of the whole planet. But the Rajasuya sacrifice hadn't happened, because Duryodhana, after that, when that became evident that in the treasury, he was in charge of the treasury. And so when people were bringing in all this gold and silver and all the magnificent treasure that built up, he got more and more envious. And so, as we know, in the palace, when he stepped in water and fell in, everybody laughed at him. He was humiliated. So he became more and more incensed and more vicious, angry. And so that became the beginning of it, and then the gambling match, and ultimately the war. So that all happened beforehand, so there was nothing then just one couple more, there we go. So what I got mostly out of the whole idea of the return was the way Lord Chaitanya embraced everybody, gave benedictions, and ultimately sent everybody off back to Bengal. And that embracing and that benediction that came empowered them all to spread this movement. And so there were 2 books given to Vasudeva. Yeah, given to Vasudeva Datta. He says, I want you to take these 2 books and copy them and spread it around. Have everybody make copies. So those are 2 books we know. Krishna Karnamrita and the Brahma Samhita. That's why it was broadcast all over the world, because everybody took those 2 copies, copied them, passed it on, others made copies, and it passed around, even right there. Then when it got back to Bengal, it perforated even more. Okay, and so when he was given benedictions, Murai Gupta was called in, and so he didn't want to go. Lord Chaitanya is calling you, please go in right now, he wants you. So he said, no, I'm not going. And so he finally was forced to go in and take darshan. And so when he was sitting there, Lord Chaitanya said, come closer, I want you to be here. He said, no, and he ran away. He said, no, I can't do it, I don't want to be here. And why? He says, my mind is so sinful that if you touch me, you'll be polluted. I said, how can I be polluted? And so he said, listen, don't make me angry by your meekness, because you're embarrassing me by your being so humble. So just be normal. And then he said, where's Haridas Thakur? And so Haridas is outside, he won't come in. And then he understood Haridas's mind. He didn't want to be too close. He didn't want to offend anybody because of his nature. He and Rupa and Sanatana never went into the temple. And to this day, it's still a problem. And that began all the way in the beginning. King Arjuna and Arjuna Maharaj later becomes King Prataparudra. It's not a well-known secret, but actually that's what happened. He's the founder and the person that propagated the whole festival in Puri. And so when the temple was begun with Indrajuna Maharaj, it's another long story, but ultimately King Parudra was so powerful that ultimately nobody could touch the place within miles. The whole area was like the Patans couldn't get in because of his power and his presence. Okay, there's a lot of description of both the Krishna coming to Kuksetra and the devotees coming for Lord Chaitanya. And when they came for the Kuksetra Mela, Gandhari with all her sons, her 100 sons came, Duryodhana, all of them came. And ultimately everybody was friendly at that time. So you can see the turn of events. Krishna turned the whole thing 100 degrees, 150, 200, 360, and the war started. There was a whole chance to annihilate, innumerable people. The same thing happens with wars today. Ultimately, Krishna assembles everybody, all the demons come together, and they blow each other apart. So Prabhupada said that two things, that it's a pious war when Krishna wants it, but the First and Second World Wars in Vietnam, these are not pious wars. It was not done at the request of Krishna's request. It just happened because of the politics between nations. And so if we can get into the mood of what happened, I mean, the culmination of everything, as far as I could see, was the reaction that happened with Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda when they saw Krishna. And ultimately, they just went into this trance and they didn't know anything. They just couldn't be talked to and nobody could talk to them, and they just wouldn't release Krishna and Balaram. And the same thing happened when Krishna stole away and be with the gopis for a short time. And so the same thing was going on then. He was addressing each and embracing each and every one of the gopis. And each one was thinking, of course, it was only her being embraced. But he embraced everybody and gave it a benediction to all the gopis. And the benediction was he never leaves. And so as Lord Jagannath, he never leaves us also. So now that he's being gifted to the world, we have to take the mercy as much as we can get while he's still here. There's a little time left. But when he leaves, ultimately, we got to go to a little bit of extra energy to get there. So, just one closing note is that when the gopis were being preached by Krishna at that moment, there was a jealous anger that happened very, very quickly because they didn't want to be preached about Jnana Yoga. But then he started talking to them intimately about the future and about what's going to happen, that I'm never going to leave you. And so if we're chanting the holy name, ultimately, as we know, we'll never leave the presence of the Supreme Lord. Krishna's in our heart. He's there anyway, all the time. But as we chant, it becomes more evident. Ultimately, it just becomes increasingly more as we get deeper into Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Any questions? Still got a couple minutes. I never get any questions. I don't know why, but 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Again. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi.